Hello everyone. I am Navya Sharma and I am a core committee member of CodeChef-VIT. And today's session will be on what actually social logins are and how you can secure your applications with the help of social logins. And we'll also be introducing authentication and authorization, that what actually they are and how do we achieve this security by using social logins. So we'll wait for the people to join and then we will start. If you can let me know that I'm audible properly. Guys, tell your friends to join soon as we'll be starting off with the webinar. So I would like to tell you that in case of any doubts you are free to drop a message in the comment section and I'll obviously answer those doubts. So in another 1 minute, we'll begin. So, okay, now we are starting off with the webinar. So, hi everyone, I'll introduce again. I'm Navya Sharma and I'm a core committee member of CodeChef-VIT. So, today's webinar will be on what actually social logins are and how we can use them to secure our applications. We'll also be talking about what authentication and authorization is and how the security is achieved. So, we'll move forward. So this screen that I'm displaying right now, this screen we all must have seen, right? At some point of time when we have visited any website, we must have seen this screen that says that you sign in either with your registered email or password on this website, or you log in with your Facebook, Google or Twitter account. Okay. So what actually these buttons mean? So this is actually like we all have our accounts on Facebook, Google and Twitter, right? So what are we doing here is we're using these account information to log in as a user in these websites. Let's say this website is XYZ, its name is XYZ, okay? So we're using our account information on the Facebook, Google or Twitter, whatever we want to. We're using that information to log in as a user at the XYZ website. Okay, so as a user, what we see, we only see that if I click on this Facebook login with Facebook button, it is going to take me to my Facebook account and log in me as a user of this XYZ website. So now I am an authenticated user of this website. So what actually happened is there are two things. The user interface that you see is of this XYZ website, but actually when you click on that I want to log in with Facebook, what actually is happening is there is another service that Facebook is providing you that is making you do login with your Facebook account into this XYZ website. So we'll be talking about what actually is it happening and how is it happening, what is the process behind. So we'll be going forward, and before going into detail on what actually is happening, I would like to share a few things with you that how social logins are, what are the advantages of doing social login. Okay, so if we do social login, we don't have to go to a long registration process. Like if you visit a website and you want to view details as a user, so what you need to do is you need to register. There is a long registration process that requires you to enter your name, your email, your phone number, and sometimes even your like your female or male or your address and all these things. So it's basically a long registration process, and then after that you need to log in with the username and password that is being chosen by you, and then only you are logged in to your account into the website. So okay, this using social logins, this cuts down the registration process. Okay, you directly click on the button that I want to log in with Facebook. You will be logged in as a user of the XYZ website. Okay, so the second advantage is that I don't want to remember any kind of a username and password. Every website I visit will have a different username and password. So how many username and password can I remember? Like, okay, we can say passwords that I know, but still, if I use social logins to log in into a particular website, that's quite easy, right? You don't need to remember anything. You're just clicking a button and see you are a user. You become a user, authenticated user of a website. So this service that is being provided by the services like Google, Facebook is very useful here. So what another thing happens is, suppose if you register to a website and you forget your details. So basically, like it's a kind of a survey that says that if you forget your details, then you don't come back to that website because you think that maybe it's going to be useless, or that forgot password, doing that forgot password thing and retrieving the password again is like a lengthy process. So this is also a case in sometimes. So the next thing is that as a creator of that website, I want that whatever my user is giving, the input email as their identity should be verified. Okay, I don't want them to give an illegal or fake email, right? So email is verified. So social network provider is in charge. So if I am logging in with Facebook, obviously the Facebook has my account and my account has a verified email ID. That's why I can use the Facebook account. So directly what I am providing a website while I'm logging is a valid email account, right? So sometimes like most of us what do is that if you want to log into a website, we sometimes give fake addresses like, okay, that it's not we don't want to make many we don't want to use it much, so let's give a fake address. So that is that as a point of the developer of that website, I want my users to give a verified email. So in this case, social logins are very helpful. So the next thing is that obviously if we log in with a Facebook or Google account, obviously our account, our Facebook account or Google account has all our profile details, right? It has our information about interest, it has information about our location, our birthday. So obviously this can be used as an extra information by the websites you log in to make your user view more enhanceable. So the next thing is that the profiles remain up to date on your own. You don't need to like go to your dashboard and automatically update your profile again and again to make it up to date. If you're logging in with Facebook, Facebook keeps it up to date automatically. So this reduces a user's work. And the next thing that we are going to talk about is how does social login work? See, these points that I mentioned below are just an outline of what we are going to study. So these are just the outline things. It's not the detailed parts that actually happen. So we'll talk about them. First of all, the user is going to enter an application. There's an application. Suppose I am a user and I enter the application, right? When I enter the application, I want to log in with Facebook, suppose. So Facebook becomes my service provider. So it's a social network service provider. I want to log in with Facebook, and I log in, I click on that login with Facebook button, and then what happens is a login request is being sent to the social network provider. So the Facebook has my request that says that I, Navya Sharma, want to log in with Facebook in this XYZ website. Okay. So once the social network provider, that is the Facebook, once Facebook confirms that the user's identity is actually valid, that this user is actually existing in my database. So this obviously the Facebook will verify that this user exists. So it will give a permission that okay, XYZ website, you can make this user to log in with the Facebook credentials. And so obviously my XYZ website, and in the XYZ website, I will be logged in as a new user. So I am a new user now in the XYZ website, and I can obviously use their various features. So what the thing is that when I log in with Facebook or Google, anything, I don't want I obviously don't want to share my Facebook passwords with the website I'm logging in. That's a plus point, that actually I don't need to share my password with the website I'm logging in, because it is directly sending the request to the Facebook server, and from there it is accessing my account. I don't need to provide my password to any kind of a third website. So that is a plus point. So now, before going here, I would like to ask that if you have any kind of doubts, before discussing about authentication and authorization, I would like to ask you that if you have any kind of doubts till now, you can ask me and answer them. So, okay, cool. Now we'll be talking about authentication and authorization. These two terms, like, they seem very quite similar, right? Even when I didn't knew about these terms, authentication and authorization, they seem to me very similar. Like, okay, what's the difference exactly between them? Even they start with A, and they sound very similar. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about what actually they are. So when we talk about any web or mobile application, there are two things that are going to come in my mind. One is that the security of the application, and the second is that how a user which is visiting my website is going to gain access to my website. Okay, how is the user actually going to go inside my website as an actual identified user and going to access my resources. So we were talking about the two topics that most people tend to confuse, that is authentication and authorization. Okay, these two terms, authentication and authorization, are mostly they're used in conjunction with each other when it comes to security and gaining access to the system. Okay, so but we need to understand that these terms are very different from each other, although they are used side by side, but still the meaning of both the terms is quite different. So first of all, we'll go to authentication. Authentication is a process. Okay, it's a mechanism, it's a definition, you can read it. It's a mechanism which is determining the user's identity before revealing the sensitive information. So if I visit a website, the website is not directly going to allow me that, okay, you enter the website without logging in and access my features that I provide. And no website will do this. Okay, they need to verify your identity, that who you are actually, so that you like they need to verify that who actually is accessing my website. So for that, authentication is basically about validating your credentials. Like when you log in, you give your username and password, so they're used to verify your identity. So in this way, the credentials are being validated, and the system is going to check that whether actually you are, you are what your credentials say, or you are a different user. Are you faking out, or are you actually an identified user? Okay. Usually, authentication is done by a username and password. We mostly have seen that, okay, when we go to a website, we type in the password and our username, and then we see a different site. We go to the dashboard and we use the services. Okay, that is one way of authentication that is done in most of the websites. But still, apart from this, there are several ways to get authenticated. Okay, like we can say that. Your fingerprints, your voice recognition, it can be a means of authentication. Because authentication, what I want is, so if I am a user, what the website wants is that there needs to be some kind of an like identifying information, a unique information that a user has, that makes it easy for the website to identify that, yes, this user is a unique user in my database, and this user has an identity. So if the identity is well and proved, I can log in that user to the dashboard. Okay, so let's like, for explaining you these things, suppose I say that I have a sender A and I have a receiver B. So there is a person A and there is a person B over the internet, right? So A is a sender and B is a receiver. A wants to send something to receiver B over the internet. Now the question is, how does the system is going to identify that actually there is a sender A and actually there is a receiver B, like actually they exist? Okay, so and how is it going to verify that message that A is sending is just dedicated only to receiver B. Like no other person can interfere in between. Like a case may happen that an intruder C may get into the connection and it tries to modify the document according to him to steal some data or whatever. So in this situation, authentication mechanism is established to ensure two things. If I say that, first of all, it is ensuring that the sender and receiver are two identified right people. Okay, they need to have some identity. So this is kind of an authentication that I want to ensure that actually they exist. And the second type of authentication that I want is that there is a security of the connection that is allowing them to share resources with each other. When A sends some resource to B, there is a security of connection so that there is no data leak or something. So this is also kind of authentication. So with this example, I just want to tell you that authentication basically means that how the user is being identified on some basis or some information that needs to be provided at the website. Okay, so let's go forward. This is what I just try to explain you, that on the website page you see the username and password that is used to authenticate you, and then we come to types of authentications. Like this is single factor authentication. Single factor basically means that if I want to authenticate a user, you just need to, it just requires a password to grant access to the user, that you should provide a correct password, and if the password matches with what is it stored in the database, then it will allow the access. And then two factor authentication is that it is a two-step process, that no, instead of only requiring a username and password, it will also require a piece of unique information, like something confidential. Suppose they ask you that what's your pet name or something, what's your birthday, like they can ask you a confidential question that is a unique question that can be used to it can be used to achieve authentication at a two-step process. Okay, then there's a multi-factor authentication. This is the most advanced method of authentication, which requires two or more levels of security. Like the levels of security increase in the advanced type of authentication, and majorly this is used in big organizations, banks, and law enforcement agencies to make their authentication more stronger. Okay. Now we move ahead, and we covered authentication, and now we're going to authorization. So authentication, what was authentication? That I have a user on a website for I just want something that should make the user being identified from the rest of the users, that shows that actually yes, this user exists. He needs to show some kind of an identity. Okay, that is authentication. Authorization is something different. Okay, authorization is a technique that is used to determine the permissions that are granted to an authenticated user. So okay, now first what will happen is that I am authenticated as a user. I have an identity. I am a user. Okay, but still after the authentication, authorization will take place. And what is it actually going to do? It is basically a technique. It is going to tell you that okay, you have an identity. Now it is going to provide you with with some access to resources. Like what access, what permissions are you allowed to access the resources? Suppose it is just going to verify your rights, your grant access to resources. Suppose I say that I am a user and I want to access a particular file from a server. Okay, the user will what is basically, suppose when I send a request to a server to access a particular file, first of all I will be authenticated. My authentication will be checked. I will be identified. Once I have an identity over the server, then it is going to find that what are the privileges that I have as an authenticated user. Like if I am a user, I don't have the rights to modify the database of an admin, right? I don't have the rights to access their database. I only have the user rights. I have only some kind of rights. Those authorize me to work upon any kind of application that I want to. So authorization is basically accessing me the rights. What rights do I have? Now, summarizing what I told, the authentication is used to verify the user's identity, and authorization determines who should be able to access what. Not everyone can access everything. Users can access their data, they can't access the admin's data. Okay, so next we'll be going to OAuth 2. So before going to OAuth 2, I like to tell you that OAuth 2 is basically used to achieve authorization. When we work with web applications, and we are a big scale web application, and we are logging in thousands and millions of users. So I want some kind of a security. Like I need to authorize and authenticate users in a proper manner. So OAuth 2 is going to help us achieve that authorization. OAuth 2 is going to give us authorization, not authentication. Okay, so we'll be talking about OAuth 2. Before that, if you have any doubts regarding to authentication and authorization, you can discuss. Okay, Sahil has a question that how does the provider get access to the database? Like I didn't understand your question. By provider, what do you mean? By provider, do you mean a user, a simple user, or an administrator kind of a person? Like what do you mean by provider? If you say that I am a user, I can't access the database of that website because the database is something that is hidden from me. That is a backend part of the website. And as a user, I can only access the front end part. So I can't access that database. But if I am a database, but if I am an admin of the website or some kind of a super user I am, then obviously I have the rights to access the database and do the read write operations. I hope that cleared it out. Now I'll be moving forward with OAuth 2. So OAuth 2 is a protocol that allows third-party applications. What are third-party applications? Let's suppose I have my own application that I have created, and I want my users to have an facility to log in with Google. So I am a third-party application, and I am creating a service that is allowing me to allow my users to log in with Google or Facebook. Okay, so it allows third-party applications to grant limited access to an HTTP service. Services are mentioned here: Facebook, GitHub, Google. It can be anything. Okay, either on behalf of a resource owner or by allowing the third-party application to obtain the access on its behalf. So, what a resource owner is and what actually how does it take place? We'll talk about it in the next slides. Okay, so for now we just understand that it is just giving us an access to access a service like Google and Facebook so that we can use it in our application. So the access is requested by a client. Client is a website or a mobile application. Okay, client is a website on which a user is trying to enter their details. So website will try to get that access done to the Facebook or Google services. So we'll talk about that. So when we so I would like to tell you one thing that suppose I say that I can tell Facebook that allow, we all know what Tinder is. Okay, so I can tell Facebook that allow Tinder to access my profile or post updates to my timeline without giving Tinder my Facebook password. Like I can tell Facebook that okay, give Tinder the access to allow access to my profile pictures or updates, whatever I make the updates in the Facebook page, to access it directly, but I'm not sharing my password with Tinder, my Facebook password with Tinder. Okay, so indirectly I'm giving this access, this right to Tinder, so that they can access my Facebook data and they can use it in my Tinder account. Okay, so now this is so cool, right? You don't have to provide your password, but still you can access what is going on in your Facebook account by another third-party application. So in case of a breach also, if Tinder suffers kind of a breach, my Facebook password is going to remain safe. So this is what is being displayed on the screen is it's showing that this is my website. This is a link. Suppose on my website I click on this link that says sign in with Google, then what is it actually going to do? You must have seen this. Okay, suppose we click on that I want to sign in with Google, then it is going to get you this kind of a screen on your laptops that says that this app would like to access, with like to view your profile or view your email address. That means that Google is asking you permission, that either you allow or you deny, that do you want that app to access your resources from Google's account. So if you click on allow button, so if you click on allow button, then obviously Google gives those rights to the website to access your account's information. So obviously if you click the allow button, then okay, you will see you will be created as an, you will see your Google details, whatever the resources that you have, you can directly use it in this website that you are trying to log in. Okay, now next, when I go forward, auth2 allows authorization. Okay, I discussed that it is going to allow us authorization. This is purely for authorization without external application getting the user's email address or password. That's what I told you, that any application, any third-party application is not going to access my Facebook's password to allow me as a user in the application. It is not going to gain access to my email or password of Facebook. It is just going to connect to the service that the Facebook has. It is going to demand for an access to allow the data to be accessed from the Facebook server to its own server. It is not going to fetch our, it is not going to save our password and email address of Facebook. So Auth2 doesn't share password data. That's the same thing that I told. It is not going to save or share your password with anyone. That is quite secure. Okay. So this is this key points, that OAuth is about authorization and not authentication. Authorization is asking permission to do stuff that you, that if that I like I showed here, that if you click on this link, there's a consent screen that asks the user permission. So it is asking your permission. Okay, this is, you are authorizing it, that either you want to allow it or you want to deny it. This is authorizing. Okay, so you are authorizing permission to do some kind of a stuff. So next, I want to tell you one thing. Okay, yeah, Auth2 is going to define 4 roles. Okay, there's a role called resource owner. Resource owner is basically I as a user, the user who has who will authorize the application, that okay, if I want, then only I can grant access to my data. Otherwise, I can't grant the access to my data. So resource owner is basically me, who is trying to log into an application. Okay. Then comes the resource server. Resource server is actually like you can say a Google hosting a profile and personal information. That means Google account. Your Google account are being hosted, which contains your profile and personal information. So resource server contains your Facebook or Google information. Okay. The client is the application requesting to access to a resource server. So